Good morning, colleagues. Welcome to the Carbon Geospatial Development Initiative's webinar on preparing for and participating in the annual UN-GGIM Sessions of the Committee of Experts. We're happy that you've joined us today for this webinar, and this webinar is quite timely given the upcoming 15th session of the UN-GGIM's Committee of Experts. For this webinar, we are happy to have representatives of the various member states of the Caribbean region who have joined us in the wider Americas to support us as we support the Caribbean member states in preparing for the upcoming session. So the objective of the webinar is to raise awareness on the formality of participating in United Nations meetings, such as UN-GGIM sessions, and to strengthen the advocacy skills of geospatial experts so that we can effectively represent, but also communicate our national positions and requirements specifically for these sessions. So whether these sessions are regionally for the Americas or whether they are globally at the United Nations headquarters. With that, we are using the WebEx platform today, and the webinar would have been organized by the CARIGEO Steering Committee of UN-GGIM Americas with technical support from the UN-GGIM Secretariat and that of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean region. At this time, I invite the President of UN-GGIM Americas, Mrs. Sofia Alejandro Nilo Crisostomo, to present greetings on behalf of the Board of Directors. Over to you, Sofia.
Thank you, Simone. Good morning, dear colleagues from the Caribbean member countries. I would like to thank Simone for inviting me to open this Caribbean delegation meeting, which is taking place prior to the 15th session of the United Nations GGIM in New York in the next August. I hope it will be a productive meeting with the position, contributions, and needs of the Caribbean being translated into strong messages from each of your country's representatives and the regional committee. We look forward to seeing you at our GGIM Americas side event in New York, where we will discuss the broad outlines of next regional work plan for the Americas 2026, 2030. We hope that this plan will be developed in the most participatory way possible, representing the interest of each of our subregions in UN-GGIM Americas, of course, the Caribbean regions. And finally, I hope we have a productive day and rest assured that we will support you in any way we can, both as a committee and as board of director of UN-GGIM Americas. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Simone.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for your warm greetings from the Americas board and for your well wishes in terms of the participation of the Caribbean member states at the upcoming 15th session, and in particular, or support of the UN-GGIM Americas side event. Thank you so much. Now we invite Alvaro Monet. Alvaro is the technical advisor of UN-ECLAC, which is based in Santiago de Chile. And so we invite him to bring greetings on behalf of UN-ECLAC. Over to you, Alvaro.
Thank you very much, querida Simone. Good morning, dear colleagues. Warm greetings from the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. We greatly appreciate your participation in this meeting, which, as the title indicates, aims to support your participation in the 15th session of the UN-GGIM Committee of Experts. As you know, the UN-GGIM work agenda covers a wide variety of content and provides valuable guidelines to support the development of geospatial information in member states. These topics and guidelines are the result of the coordinated and collaborative work of various actors and teams. These include the UN-GGIM Secretariat, functional groups, thematic networks, and Center of Excellence, among others, which develop programs and provide valuable resources that contribute to the progress of national geospatial initiatives. The UN-GGIM agenda is for member states. The annual sessions of the Committee of Experts provide a great opportunity for you to provide direction to the work contained in each of the items addressed during the 3-day session, in consistency with your aspirations and challenges. Therefore, the best way to take advantage of this opportunity is for you, representing your countries, to express your position on the point of discussion following the review of the reports made available for the committee each year. Sincere thanks in advance to the panelists of this webinar, who will generously inform us about the benefits of participating in regional and global intergovernmental processes, the preparatory and participatory activities, and an overview of the reports that are part of the agenda for this 15th session. So from ECLAC, once again, fraternal greeting and our best wishes that this meeting to be of the greatest benefit for you also. Thank you very much, dear colleagues.
And thank you so much, Alvaro, and for stressing the importance with respect to, or, well, highlighting the fact that the sessions are really for member states. And so with that, the importance of us being prepared and being able to provide good representation at these sessions for the benefit of our region and also our individual countries. With that, it is important for us to really understand what are these benefits. So what are the benefits that are involved, or what are the benefits that can be derived with respect to participating in these regional, but also these global intergovernmental bodies in terms of sessions, and with that, how it is that it benefits us at a national level with respect to countries, but in particular, how it is that we contribute and we participate with respect to the whole advancement of global geospatial information management. So with that, I invite Ms. Michelle St. Clair, who is a land surveyor at the Lands and Surveys Department of Barbados, to provide an overview for us. Overview with respect to the benefits that can be derived by member states. Over to you, Michelle. You may share screen.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you for the opportunity to share Barbados's experiences and the benefits we have derived by participating in the regional and the global intergovernmental processes of UN-GGIM. It is our responsibility as focal points to the Committee of Experts to disseminate the resources, contacts, and knowledge from the UN meetings, both globally and regionally, with our national stakeholders and partners, including the UN mission, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the cabinet of our respective countries. The greatest value can be extracted when there is consistency and commitment from the national focal points. As Barbados's focal point, the Lands and Surveys Department has sought to engage in meetings, webinars, and work activities at the Caribbean level through CARIGEO, within the Americas Regional Committee, and as part of the wider global network of UN-GGIM. We have done so with the recognition that the more we engage, the more we shape the global agenda to include our Caribbean realities. Over the past 10 years, Barbados's participation at the annual UN-GGIM Sessions in New York has grown, and we have benefited tremendously, not only from the frameworks and the guidance that has been developed and shared by the working groups, but from the sharing of experiences and the realized opportunities for collaboration that are discovered during side events and the frank and honest conversations and networking that occurs over tea or coffee during the breaks. It is important that as Caribbean focal points, that we prepare and deliver interventions on the floor of these meetings. By hearing from several Caribbean nations, we amplify our position as small island developing states and ensure that our perspectives are captured in the discussion points of the final reports. And I will reiterate my earlier point. We are not seen if we are not heard. There is also tremendous value in attending the side events of the UN-GGIM session. At the 13th session, Barbados attended the side event on geospatial information on climate resilience, and there was a proposal to create a task team to guide the work. We, as Barbados national focal point, could see the clear alignment with our Prime Minister's advocacy on climate issues. Through our work with the task team, we have been able to highlight the work of UN-GGIM to Prime Minister Motley and secure her support. She prepared a video message for the 7th high-level forum held in Mexico last year, and we were able to get Ambassador Thompson, with responsibility for climate change, to participate in a webinar on the margins of the SIDS conference last year. Political support and increased awareness among high-level decision makers helps to cement support and secure financing for the department's national geospatial projects and legitimize our national involvement with UN-GGIM. During your time in New York, I would also suggest visiting your mission and investing the time in building a relationship with the ambassador and officers of the mission. We started a couple of years ago with an informal chat to give an overview of our in-country work as a government department and share the importance of the work of the UN-GGIM Committee. Fast forward to last year, where our Ambassador Jackman, accepted an invitation to deliver a statement and participate in the Forum for Integrated Geospatial Information Management side event. The missions are our permanent representatives at the UN, and having a partner who can champion your agenda for global resolutions, especially those which require support outside of our regular meeting time in August, is vital. UN-GGIM Americas and CARIGEO are our source of technical support, capacity building, and collaboration through very practical and tangible projects and webinars. The Caribbean project was the catalyst for creating Barbados's GNSS infrastructure and continuously operating reference stations network and our active participation within UN-GGIM. CARIGEO continues on this initiative by providing a forum and a platform for Caribbean countries to collaborate and collectively engage with our more established regional institutions, such as SEDIMA, CIMH, and OECS. At the level of our Americas Regional Committee, webinars such as those organized by the Americas UN-IGIF Working Group on the strategic pathways are opportunities for us as Caribbean countries to share our experiences and find collective solutions to our common problems. There is often someone else in the room who has overcome a similar challenge to yours. My call to action is to encourage all Caribbean focal points to make at least one presentation at an Americas or CARIGEO webinar in the upcoming year of work. There is no intervention too small. By engaging meaningfully with our counterparts, we evolve from being observers to valued partners. Together, we can unlock the benefits of geospatial information management to improve our nations and transform our people. Thank you, Simone, for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much for that overview, Michelle, and for highlighting Barbados's journey, which has been quite a journey. Thank you for highlighting that over time, your representation has increased, your level of involvement in the various sub-bodies under UN-GGIM has increased also, given your national priority areas as a country. And so that speaks as an example to the rest of us as member states to look at what are the national priority areas of our country, and with that, see where within the UN-GGIM structure with respect to the various working groups that exist, the various task teams that exist, and how it is that through our involvement, we can advance our work at a national level and also at a regional level, but importantly, at a national level for the benefit of our countries. So thank you so much for that, Michelle. And commendations for all the hard work that Barbados is doing at the regional and also at the international level where UN-GGIM activities are concerned. As we continue, we now look forward to hearing, because it is a process. It is a process with respect to being able to prepare for, and with that, being able for us to be able to participate at a wholesome level, at a fulsome level at the UN-GGIM sessions. For many of us, our first journey to the United Nations headquarters in Manhattan would have felt a bit overwhelming, possibly, given the journey, but also the level of preparation. Some of us would have had a lot of questions in terms of what to expect, how should we show up and represent, how can we get more involved, and the listing goes on. So with that, Cecile is going to carry us on that journey. So what is the journey with respect to preparing for and also be able to participate in the sessions? There are pre-activities of which we need to do as member states, different from activities throughout the session that will help us to be able to prepare significantly and be able to participate wholesomely. So with that, we hand over to Cecile. Cecile hails from the Statistics Division, which is the UN-GGIM's Secretariat. So I hand over to you, Cecile, as I stop sharing.
A pleasant good morning, everybody. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much for introducing me, Simone. First, I must say welcome to the participants for this session for the Caribbean, and thanks to Simone, who is the Caribbean vocal, for organizing this meeting, and for ECLAC, and for Sophia, Alvaro, and all the members of the CARIGEO Steering Committee who organized the session. Of course, Michelle, who did a fabulous job as usual in sharing the benefits of what it means to participate as a member state in the global arena and also the regional arena, and the benefits to be had. First, I must say that I'll be speaking very fast. I hope you're all English speakers. We have many slides. I'm sure Simone will be sharing the slides with you, and they will be posted on ECLAC's website under CARIGEO. Some of the information you may not know, it would be nice if we could use the chat during this presentation. I encourage you to do so. And please ask questions during the presentation. Simone, you can interrupt me anytime if there is a pressing question that you think I should answer during the presentation. And yes, my first question that I would like to see people put in the chat is to indicate if this will be your first GGIM session in New York for those of you who will be attending. So help me, Simone, by monitoring the chat. Let me know how many persons have indicated that it's their first meeting. And your next job is to indicate if there are any questions. What do you wish to receive? What do you want to learn? Is there anything specific from this session that you would like to find out? All right, Simone actually said what the session will be about. What do you do to prepare before, what you do during, and what are maybe some things at the very end. But we're going to be focusing on preparation and what you do during the session. And of course, documentation is a very big thing, and sometimes it can be very confusing, particularly for new participants, delegations. Sometimes people ask who can participate. Of course, if you're a member state of the United Nations, you can participate. You just need to have your mission, your foreign affairs, notify your mission to New York that you wish to attend. And so your country usually selects the representative. We in the Secretariat is not responsible for deciding who in your country represents you in New York. So that's a country decision. But we, based on the rules of procedure, we try to say, well, we have said that it should be persons who are heads of national mapping or geospatial data management agencies with backgrounds in geomatics, surveying, geography, so on and so forth. It is all on the screen and it is provided in the terms of reference of the Committee of Experts, and the link is provided for you. Okay. How do you register to attend? Registration is a double process, right? First of all, what we do, we initiate the process from the Secretariat by sending out what we consider what is called a note verbal. The note verbal is actually not sent from the Statistics Division. It is sent from the UN Protocol Office, and it is under the signature of the Secretary General. So that means it's the highest order of invitation that is sent out. And it is sent to your missions in New York. And then it is the responsibility of the missions in New York to send it to the responsible entity in your country. You'll hear UN officials refer to, they will say, send it to capital. Capital means your capital state, city within your country, and your representative. Oftentimes, sometimes there's a challenge as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is usually the receiving end within capital, may not know who this document should be sent to. And that is why the Secretariat will also follow up with what we call an announcement letter. And this letter is under the signature of the Director of Statistics, and it informs countries on their mailing list that are representatives that they know are members of the Committee of Experts, that this meeting will be happening in New York and you're invited to attend. We ask that this announcement letter also serve as your letter that can be used for you to seek visas and other supporting documentation to give you permission, internal permissions, because sometimes we know the internal process for permissions can be very lengthy and very bureaucratic. So those letters are the ones that you use to facilitate your participation. Of course, after those letters are received, then your Foreign Affairs and your mission in New York will have to register you, and we use an electronic platform that is referred to as e-delegate. And this platform, I do not have access to that platform. This platform was created specifically for your mission representatives and the conference secretariat in New York. And your mission representatives, they have access and they will go on e-delegate. They'll search for the meeting, which is the Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management. They'll register you. and through the e-registration system. And there's a different tab that they go under resources, where they also register you to access to create your grounds pass. The grounds pass is the picture on the right, which is the badge, and the D represents delegates. You'll see like different persons walking around the UN with different letters on their badges, like staff members will have S, and so on and so forth. And so it is very, very important, of course, that you be in contact. Michelle said it very well, that you're in contact with your mission, have a relationship. They will generate your badge. They'll tell you what information that you need to send them. Usually it's your passport and your passport information and a picture, and they'll have you registered. Some missions are very nice, and they will collect your badge and tell you to pick it up at the mission. Some will tell you that you need to go to the pass office to collect your badge. A quick reference guide that you should know about is the New York Resource Guide. It is on the 15 session website. It has all these information in terms of what you will need to have to support your preparation for the meeting, so you should be aware of this document. All right, when you get to the UN is a very highly secured facility. And of course, security is everyone's business. If you speak to the security officers, they'll tell you that we get lots of bomb threats and security threats, physical and cyber. And so they're very keen about security. And so access for delegates are usually through the First Avenue and 46th Street entrance is the main entrance for you. It's easy to find. It is well marked, and you'll see security officers standing. You usually enter to the left, and of course you'll go through, and they'll have security processing. You'll need to have your badge at all times, and we encourage you to also have your national ID or your passport with you at all times, because sometimes you may also need it. One thing I should also point out that as a duly credentialed and registered delegate of the UN, you can have guests come with you to the UN. Suppose you brought your wife or your cousin, your aunt, your kid, your child. They can be your guests, but they will be under your responsibility during your time at the UN. All you need to do is go to the General Assembly lobby. There's an information booth. You speak to the officer, hand them your badge, and they'll give you a little pass that you stick on to your guests that they'll have to wear, and they can accompany you to your meeting. So it's very possible. So if you want to bring your guests, please feel free to bring that person with you for maybe a day, half a day, whatever you wish. Okay, for those of you who will need to go to the ground pass of the ID office and to collect your badge, your ground pass, it's located here. It's on 320th East 45th Street. It's very close to the UN, and so that information is provided for you. In terms of security, this is something I just added, not to frighten you, but to say we ask that you behave normally, because if you do not refuse to comply, it may result in your detention or removal from the premises, or you'll be denied access to the premises. Okay, all right. What is also equally confusing is when you leave the security, because you go through and they scan your bags and your belongings and check your ID. And then, of course, entering the building can be quite confusing. Sometimes what the Secretariat does is to have persons posted who will guide delegates to where the conference room is. If you don't already know so, the conference room, the meetings will be held in conference room 4, which is in the first basement, that is downstairs. At the entrance level, you'll go down one level, and it will be in conference room 4. And we will be in that room for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, because some side events will be held on Tuesday. And so that's the location of the conference room. This slide shows you where the side events will be found. And so you'll see where conference room 4 is. On the other side in the passage, you'll have conference room 12 and 11, where side events will be held on Tuesdays and Mondays. And on Tuesday, we'll also have some side events. If you look at the side events calendar on the website, that there'll be meetings in conference room 4. And of course, there are the alphabet rooms, which is down a corridor, around a corner. And we call the alphabet rooms A, B, C, D. They are smaller rooms. They don't have much audio-visual support and so on, or microphones. And so they are more intimate rooms. An interesting fact to note is that there's a lost and found. So sometimes people lose laptops, purses, phones, wallets. So be aware that sometimes if you lose something, more than likely it will end up in the UN lost and found, and that's the information to find out where it is. All right, so those are some logistics in terms of security, entrance, badges, so on and so forth. I'm sure you all know about the Committee of Experts and what it does, so I won't dwell on it. We have some slides here. You can look at it later. This is the governing body. And I want to share with you this org chart. It may be a very little difficult to look at. It was prepared by Paul, one of our presenters. You'll hear from him later from the US Census Bureau. But what this shows you is the different bodies. I call them the subsidiary bodies within UN-GGIM, ranging from the regional committees, the various subcommittees, experts, working groups, the Secretariat, and he specifically, because the Caribbean is within the Americas, and then he also showed what are the various working groups and subcommittees within the Americas, and on the left, the United Nations. Importantly, what he did with this chart was to show you the blue boxes show where the United States of America is actively participating, and they're actually participating in a lot of things. There are lots of blue boxes all over. We know that the Caribbean, we have very small bodies and we don't have many persons, and therefore we cannot stretch ourselves so wide in participating in so many things. But I do believe there's space to be strategic, to share and to collaborate. Maybe Barbados is active in climate, but then St. Lucia could be active in might be land management, and you share and exchange. So because we have to leverage our resources to make our life better. And this is what this meeting is about. And so this slide just shows, it talks about how the committee operates, just like any other committee within the UN or even within your own offices. Of course, there are the governing instruments, maybe you'd call it the terms of reference, and the rules of procedure. The rules of procedure governs really what happens during a meeting, and it ensures its proper functioning. And the person that we have, for want of a better word, who polices the rules of procedure is what we refer to as the conference secretary, who is appointed by the conference services, and that person knows the rules of procedure ins and outs. So that person deals with procedural matters. And Michelle referred to your mission representatives. Importantly, during meetings, you as a technical person may not be aware of some procedural matters, but if you need to be aware of the rules of procedures, because it tells you exactly how things should go. Things that we talk about, voting, the right of reply when persons make an intervention, how is it handled? And I was the responsible secretary for the group on geographical names, and that meeting can become very political. And in those political meetings, the role of the conference secretary becomes very important, because that person knows all the various procedures and ways in which those situations can be adequately and correctly managed. In our last meeting, the conference secretary actually called in the UN security for that meeting because something serious nearly happened. So it's serious business. And so we have the annual sessions where the debates and the reports are presented, where it's like the culmination of a year's work of the committee in terms of making decisions to move on that will inform what happens during the intersessional period. So that would be the period after August until July the next following year. And of course, the Secretariat of the Statistics Division is there to support you and provide secretarial support. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. And it is the member states that are in charge. You are the ones that are the responsible actors, make decisions, set the rules, and decides what happens. Not us, the Secretariat. It is you. You are the ones that are responsible. So it is important for you to look at the rules of procedure and to know how things operate. We tend to be largely technical people, and sometimes we don't pay attention to the rules of procedure. But oftentimes your toes are stepped on and your rights are denied. And if you know the rules of procedure, you will stick your hands up and say, the rules of procedure have been violated. Please ensure that I be given my right to respond. And also, if you are not sure, this is where you need to seek the guidance of your mission representative, because they are very aware of the procedures within which the UN operates. So please be guided accordingly. Okay, within the session of the Committee of Experts, they usually start off agenda items of first 1, 2, 3 agenda items covers organizational matters in terms of election of the Bureau and the work program, the timetable. We'll speak a little bit more about it. And then, of course, when the different reports come up, we'll have the general debate where the reports are introduced and then they have a discussion. You have member states and the observers may give their statements. And then at the end, which is very important, there will be the decisions that come from each agenda item. Any questions so far? No? Simone? No questions?
Cecile. Oh, no, Cecile. Still checking.
Okay, wonderful. All right. The conference secretariat for the Committee of Experts, what I spoke about, I said it's the proper name is the Department of General Assembly and Conference Management, and they provide procedural guidance. And when you hear the chairs during the meeting, right, the chairs of the Committee of Experts, that would be Deidre, lady from Belgium, and the guy from Ivory Coast. I'm not remembering their names. Their faces came up earlier. They will be chairing substantively the agenda items, and the work will be shared across the 3 of them, right? And you'll hear them speaking, and everything they say generally is scripted. And those scripts are prepared by the conference secretary, right? So the conference secretary prepares these scripts, and it is the detailed sequence of the proceedings of exactly what should be done and said per agenda item as per the organization of work. That's a document that you need to, will be part of your arsenal throughout the week for the 3 days. Okay, and this conference secretary also prepares the organizational papers. They submit daily information to the United Nations Journal. This is also a document that is used as part of the guidance and guide. Your mission representatives will use it. It's like a diary that tells you what is happening in the UN each day, the documents that will be reviewed and discussed, and so on and so forth. So that's it. And then usually we ask that before you come to the session, you constantly visit the webpage, because documents are constantly being uploaded. And you may wish to identify reports that are relevant to your country's national interest. You may see a side event that you want to attend. And then in order to contribute to the session, you need to read and analyze the reports. Different countries have different methods and procedures in terms of how they consult with each other and decide on a position and prepare statements that we'll have McCarthy and Paul from the US and Simone from Jamaica speak on what they do internally to prepare their positions to contribute to the discussions during the session. And so I will move on. There's also, when the announcement letter is sent, there's usually a reference to a document called documentation. And in that documentation is a request to prepare country reports. This is an optional report that countries may wish or may not wish to prepare. I always thought it would be important for countries to prepare a national report, but it is not mandatory, but it is a request that is done. So you can keep that in mind. Some countries will prepare a national report because they will use it as leverage to seek approval to attend. They will say, oh, I'm prepared my national country report to be presented to the Committee of Experts. But of course, these country reports are not formally presented. They are just placed on a website. All right. Michelle spoke about quite adequately. I don't wish to speak more about it, about identifying your responsible officer in your mission in New York and creating a relationship. She said it quite well, and we cannot underestimate it. Don't come to New York without visiting your mission and speaking to your mission representative. Usually they assigned a person to this meeting, to the GGIM meeting, and so know that officer and maybe invite that officer to may sit with you, maybe during one of the agenda items that you believe is important to your country's national interest. All right. Okay. Simona asked me to share something like this before in terms of what interventions were done. I have not really made an improvement on this chart. It was done only for the 6th to 9th session, where it shows you the Caribbean interventions, like countries attended and the number of interventions that were made for each session, where the performance wasn't bad at all in terms of the Caribbean. And I think this period where the Caribbean was really performing and attended was when we had Mexico through Ronaldo Campo provide financial support for quite a bit of Caribbean representatives to be at the meeting in New York. So we had significant Caribbean participation with financial support. So that is why we had, but after this period, the number of participants went down, and so did the number of interventions. This is a list of the most important work items that are on the agenda for the Committee of Experts. You can choose which ones you are most interested in. This is an important part of what you need to do to prepare. And these are 4 documents. We have referred to the rules of procedure. I'm sure you're aware of the provisional agenda, which is just the list of documents, the documentation of the session, which I alluded to earlier. And most important would be 2025/3, which is the organization of work, because that is the detailed agenda for the session. It tells you what is happening, so on and so forth. I should point out, right, that the organization of work can be changed during the meeting. It is not done as frequently during GGIM meetings, but for other big sessions, when the agenda may be running behind or they may change things on the agenda during the meeting, because you guys are not familiar with the procedures, right? But the organization of work can change, and an amendment can be requested. And it would be the responsibility of the conference secretary to have that amendment made. and make the revised document available. But it will be very difficult, and the people shy away from doing this because it requires resources, it requires translation resources, and these days the UN is suffering from financial constraints. So a lot of the flexibility is no longer there, but it is possible. We wish to point out that in the technical documents that are submitted for discussion, we pay particular attention to the points for discussion. This is a general opinion. I've been going through the reports, and I'm believing that some of the points for discussion have not been very tightly formulated as I would have expected them to be. But it is important to pay attention to the points for discussion, because the debate on the agenda item will be based on the points that have been raised. So we ask that you pay specific attention to the points for discussion. Each document within the UN, importantly, has a symbol. It's a document number, but they refer to it as a symbol. So you'll hear them talk about the symbol for the document. And how it's come about is based on this formulation you're seeing on the screen. E represents ECOSOC. C20 is the number that has been assigned to UN-GGIM, the Committee of Experts. And 2023 is the year within which the report was tabled. And the document number is just a sequential number that Vilma, who is the conference person who does the documentation for the Secretariat, assigns sequentially. All right. So you will see that I was not very good. I usually change the symbol to the year of the session. So for this year, you'll note that the symbols would be E/C .20/2025, and then the sequential numbers. You'll also see symbols with these acronyms at the end, and there's a long list of many of them, but within this ambit, these are the ones you will see generally. So you'll maybe see CRPs, you may have an addendum or a revision, and L for limited distribution, meaning draft documents, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. M for information, and so on and so forth. So, for example, the provisional agenda would have the symbol at the very top right-hand corner for all documents, and the organization of work, as I keep saying, is the most important one that will guide you through the GGIM meeting, right? At the very end of the meeting, after the meeting ends, we'll issue a list of participants, and also the most important document is a report of the session. Another important thing to note is seating arrangements. Within the conference room, number 4 is one of the biggest conference rooms, apart from, of course, the General Assembly and ECOSOC and the Security Council, which are huge rooms. Seating is arranged alphabetically for UN-GGIM. When you enter as a country representative, you look for your country name and you sit behind your country name. Usually 2-3 seats are assigned per delegation. Overflows are usually asked to sit in the gallery, where observers and delegates are right here to the left of the screen, right? And the main area is reserved for national representatives. Another important thing to note is the difference. You'll hear us referring to a session and you'll hear us referring to a meeting. And it may seem a little different from what you do or say when you have your meetings, right? So we'll say that UN-GGIM has 6 meetings. So each day we have 2 meetings from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock would be 1 meeting, and from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock is a second meeting. So the entire session will have 6 meetings. So the terminology is important for you to note. On the agenda item, you'll also note that there are 20 agenda items. 2 are administrative items that deals with election of the Bureau and the accepting the organization of work and the agendas. And then you will have the items for discussion, and under each item for discussion, you will see a designation that is for whether the report is for discussion and a decision, whether it is for information and discussion. That means no decision is supposed to be made, which is not very true because a decision is written. And then you'll see for discussion only, right? But those differences are stated in the organization of work. But invariably, there are decisions for every agenda item. All is good so far? Okay, this is a little bit more detail in terms of what happens during the session. I think, Simone, you need to stop me when we need to speak about we have the interventions in terms of what happens in terms of preparing for the session from the member states. So what happens during the session, right? You have on hand the organization of work. You have the opening of the session and the procedural matters. That is done usually by the conference, the bureau chair, right? Who does that? And then you come on to the substantive matters. The chair opens the agenda item, and then he or she invites the introduction of the papers. Usually, the chair of the working group or the subcommittee or the high-level group is asked to introduce the papers that were prepared. So the introducers provide a very short summary, and they usually include the points for discussion. And then after that, the paper is introduced, the chair opens the floor and asks for interventions from delegations. Usually, at the podium, the chair will have a list. When you press your green button to say that you indicate that you wish to speak, based on when your button is pressed, the list appears on the podium on the screen for the person who is presiding over the item, and they will identify you, and you are only allowed to speak when the chair identifies you. All right, and you give your intervention. At the end of each agenda item, a summary is delivered by a representative from the Secretariat. And at the end of the summary, the chair closes the agenda item. This is an important note. Usually, if you have a burning point to make, you need to press your button to make your intervention. When that hammer goes down by the chair, it means that agenda item is closed and they will not go back to it. For example, if there's a discussion, right, and there's something important that you like to contribute, and you may need to speak to maybe your permanent secretary or your prime minister in capital. Say on Wednesday, there's a discussion point. What you need to do is to ask the chair to leave the agenda item open, because you need to consult with capital or your Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so they do not close the agenda item. So it allows you time to seek conference or approval with your capital, your Ministry of Foreign Affairs, your ministry, your permanent secretary, and come back the following day or 2 hours later and make your contribution on that agenda item. This is something that many people are not aware of, because as soon as they hit the hammer, it means that you cannot go back to that agenda item. And a lot of times they use that to get away with things that they do not wish to have interventions on. So be aware of those things, that you can ask for an agenda item to remain open. All right, until you can get your intervention done and made. All right. All right, so there are several opportunities to speak. You can speak when you introduce a report if you're a chair or somebody who has substantively contributed to a paper. You can make a statement on behalf of your country, or sometimes Sophia may ask you to make a statement from a regional capacity, or you may also, sometimes persons wear two hats, and so they, like somebody like Valerie, who may speak as a representative of the private sector, or she may speak as a representative of the OECS. So depending on the cap that you're wearing, when you introduce yourself, you say, well, I'm making a statement on behalf of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, so on and so forth. Or it is very important, I am speaking on behalf of UN-GGIM Americas. All right? So there are various ways in which you can speak. All right. I spoke earlier about the role of the chair. The chair is a powerful person, right? During this meeting, these are the bureau members, and these are their roles, because they are the ones who open and close. They are the ones who tell you you can speak. They are the ones who can tell you you're speaking too long, you need to reduce. So they are the ones in control of the meeting, right? But of course, you also as a delegate have powers, but they are super powerful. All right, I think this is where I need to take a break. Simone, am I correct? And
Please, thank you.
so I now hand it back over to Simone, and then we'll have a few interventions. I'm sure you're tired of hearing my voice. And I will stop sharing and allow somebody else to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cecile, for going through in depth for us. So I know that there are, based on my checking of the listing of participants, welcome to all who have joined us. There are many persons who have joined us since we commenced just after 9 o'clock. So thank you so much for being with us. I know that there are few members who are present with us who are or will be visiting the United Nations for the first time this year with respect to attendance at the 15th session. So with that, as per indicated in the chat, please do indicate said. Can you use the point at the bottom that says raise hand if it's a case whereby you will be attending the session for the first time this year? Could we see by a show of hand if you will be a first-time attendee this year? First-time attendee, first-time attendee. All right. Welcome, Wentworth. We look forward to your participation this year. Happy to see you on board. And we're hoping that based on all that has been shared, that it is helping you with respect to appreciating what the procedures are, what to expect, what resources are available, of which you would have mentioned, what to expect pre and during the event, the whole act of gaining access, what happens in terms of the flow of proceedings when we are there, in terms of the official meetings that will be held, what we can do in terms of the powers of the member states with respect to whatever agenda items that are listed there on us providing representation. And if it's a case whereby there are particular items of which are of importance, but we may need to consult otherwise with respect to capital or with respect to our permanent mission. Because as would have been indicated, Michelle would have mentioned, Ceci would have also reinforced the fact that the building, the fostering, the strengthening of relations with our permanent mission that is based in New York is very important, and how it is that at times we may need to consult them with respect to particular items. And I would like to speak more to that, because the fact is they are the ones who are there, and they're the ones who provide consistent representation on behalf of our individual countries at the UN. So they would be familiar with what is happening in the other spheres in terms of the other UN bodies, how it is that our countries, or what our country's position is in other UN forums. So they also help to ensure that there is consistency, there's transparency, but also consistency in how it is that our individual countries show up at these UN meetings. So fostering those relationships, strengthening those relationships with them is very important, and being able to reach out to them as needed pre and during the session, very, 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 very important. All right. So at this point, do we have any questions? So Sissy would have shared quite a bit with us in terms of a mouthful. Do you have any questions based on what you would have shared? Any concerns that you have? Any area that may need some level of clarity at all? Or are we all okay? We're A-okay? No questions? We're good? Good. All right. It's looking like we're good. All right. So as we proceed, we are now at the point whereby it is important for us to then hear from the countries, because there are various members, and Sissy would have also shared with us the fact that our representation as a region, it would have varied over time. But the years the funding was being provided to support member states' participation from our sub-region. And so with the support of Mexico, which was very integral with that process and thing. So what it is that we want to do is to ensure that our representation continues and that we increase our representation. So let's hear from the individual countries. So we're going to be hearing from St. Lucia. We're also going to be hearing from Jamaica, and also from the United States of America, which sits within our Americas region, with respect to our individual processes that we take with respect to our journey in preparing and being there at the UN headquarters and showing up where those sessions are concerned. Now, as we individually share as countries, there are certain, so we'll be reinforcing certain aspects of what Sissy would have shared, given our individual journey. With respect, you might hear certain, there might be slight differences, there may be overlaps, but there'll be a lot of reinforcement. And so with that, at this point in time, I'm going to invite Markathian. Markathian Alexander is the Information Technology Officer, Officer 3, and he sits within the Department of Physical Development and Urban Renewal, the government of St. Lucia. Markathian is also a very active member of our Caribbean Geospatial Development Initiative Steering Committee, and he provides a lot of support where the execution of our duties or activities are concerned to support the Caribbean region. So at this time, Mark, I invite you to share screen and guide us through the procedures, the process that St. Lucia takes with respect to representation at these UN-GGIM sessions. Over to you, Mark.
Hello, good day, everyone. Thanks for having me as the first person to present on how we go about preparing our interventions. Welcome to everyone on the webinar. St. Lucia has been, well, this is our second time that we will be going to this in a row. We have had some spotty representation before, but we're working towards getting to be consistent. And so it is still quite a learning journey for us. So, hey, why didn't my slide change? Okay, right. So last year, we made 3 interventions on the topics of interest to us. And the process that we followed was a very simple one. We had a very small delegation. It was a very simple process. We identified the agenda items that were of interest to our country, and we reviewed the reports. In reviewing the reports, we had discussions with the practitioners within the department on those on those topics, and then an intervention would have then been drafted based on those agenda items that we were going to focus on. That agenda, those draft interventions would then be presented to the permanent secretary and reviewed by the permanent secretary. Now, critically for us, like I said earlier, our delegation is quite small, 2 persons. One of the things that makes this process very easy for us so far in our early nascent stages is that the permanent secretary is the accounting officer for the department. She is responsible for the department's pronunciations, and therefore she is part of the delegation. That makes it really easy to speak authoritatively on behalf of our department when making an intervention. If we need to review stuff, because she is part of the delegation or the head of the delegation and is present, it can be done quite quickly. So far it has been that simple. We're going to be repeating that same process again for this year. She will be a member of our delegation again. We've not expanded it yet. Hopefully we will get to that point in the near future. But it's been quite simple for us, and we look forward to getting more involved in it. Thank you. Simone?
Yes,
All
thank
questions?
you so much, Mark. I will now share screen. Thank you. Let me go again. Okay, so the Jamaican context. So I will carry you through the procedures that we go through as a delegation for Jamaica with respect to our participation at the UN-GGIM sessions. So in terms of background, the National Spatial Data Management Branch of our Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation serves as the focal point for UN-GGIM matters. So the ministry, under the ministry falls land matters. So there's a land portfolio area. Under land portfolio area is where geospatial matters are considered or dealt with. So with that, the NSDMB, as the lead with respect to geospatial matters, serves as the focal point for UN-GGIM. Are you still seeing my slide? Can you confirm if you're still seeing my slides, please?
No, I'm not
not
seeing your
seeing that.
slide.
What
It
did
went.
you do, Mark? Mark, you did something. Okay.
I closed my PowerPoint window, then I noticed you disappeared.
Okay. All right. We're good. We're seeing my slides again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Now with that, the head of the National Spatial Data Management Branch. So whoever sits as the principal director, currently Mrs. Alicia Edwards is the principal director. She serves as the focal point, and I serve as the alternate focal point. So with that, we coordinate all the various activities with respect to Jamaica's involvement in the various areas of UN-GGIM. So Ceci would have mentioned the note verbal coming from the UN to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for each country. With that, we would receive from Jamaica's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade the note verbal. So apart from it being disseminated from the Secretariat, UN-GGIM Secretariat, to the focal points. So we would receive it via email from UN-GGIM, but we also receive the note verbal through our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. When we get that notification from the ministry then asks that we go through the process of selecting and naming the Jamaica delegation. With that, the NSDMB then reaches out to the various government agencies that have responsibility, given their mandate, for various areas that fall on the agenda listing in terms of items for the sessions. So CC would have carried us through what those agenda items look like. It's a long listing. Given my check right now, I'm seeing 20 agenda items listed on the 15th session. And so with that, we would go through the process of looking at the agenda items, looking at where they sit in terms of our focus as a country, given what the priority areas of our government looks like. And so with that, we would identify, based on that, who are the government entities which are important with respect to their support of the preparations for the sessions, and who would therefore be important with respect to forming the Jamaica delegation that then goes and represents capital at the UN headquarters. So once that reach out happens to the various government entities that have been identified, a process is then ensued in terms of obtaining approval for the individual delegate representation. A listing is therefore, after the individual approvals are garnered with respect to consent to providing representation is garnered, that listing is then prepared by the NSDMB and submitted to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also to our Jamaica Permanent Mission that sits in New York, indicating who the delegates would be with respect to representation. So the listing goes through our process because we would have submitted a listing first based on the reaching out. However, we then have to go through our process of obtaining approval. So apart from submitting to our Foreign Affairs Ministry, apart from submitting to our Permanent Mission, we then have to submit in terms of getting approval for the individual delegates to go on official overseas travel, and that approval comes through our Office of the Cabinet, all right, which requires additional documentation with respect to getting that done. The NSDMB then hosts various Jamaican delegation preparatory meetings, and these meetings are held to assist us in making preparations leading up to the session before we leave capital to journey to New York, but also while they're in New York with respect to meetings continue in terms of communication. Importantly for us, our delegation is multifaceted because it comprises persons who physically journey to New York and who are there, but also representatives who may still be in capital, who are also in constant dialogue in terms of the process of preparation and providing assistance throughout the entire process. So it's multifaceted in terms of our representation. NSDMB then coordinates the scheduling of a meeting, and Michelle would have spoken to that, she would have reinforced that, the importance of meeting with our Permanent Mission. So our principal director for the NSDMB would have reached out to our Permanent Mission and would have requested support to schedule a meeting of the delegation with our permanent representative, so our ambassador and his team, to ensure that when we go, we have that meeting and that important sit down with them, but also importantly to ensure that there isn't a clash between that meeting happening and our representation in the various side events and the various official meetings that are scheduled to occur at the UN. Our delegation is comprised of multiple agencies. So I spoke about the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, under which geospatial matters sits, and so the ministry is the head in terms of focal point. Within the ministry is the NSDMB as the active focal point that executes the duties, and then under the ministry also is the National Land Agency, which is the other longest standing representative in terms of support to UN-GGIM matters. So NSDMB, National Land Agency, and there's also our Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, or Planning Institute of Jamaica, and our Statistical Institute of Jamaica. So the delegation is comprised of representatives from all of these government agencies under the government of Jamaica. But in addition to these agencies and our representatives that form the delegation, we also lean on and rely on support from additional government entities as may be needed with respect to getting their contribution while we go through the process of crafting what will be our country level interventions. So As mentioned before, the agendas, we look at what are national priority areas, and with that, we identify which of those agenda items is of importance, national importance, and also regional importance, and global importance. And with that, we go through a process of selecting which of those agenda items we would focus on in terms of crafting or interventions. So the NSDMB coordinates the assigning of the agenda items. So we then focus based on the mandate of the individual government agencies, which agenda items we would lead in terms of crafting. And then these would be supported by additional members who are members of the delegation who also provide support with respect to the crafting. As mentioned, we will consult other government entities as being needed in terms of assisting with the finalization of these to ensure that there is consistency with respect to what it is that we believe, or what are our concerns, or what is our focus as a country. And so there's consistency where that is concerned in terms of the representation that is provided with respect to how these interventions are crafted. Because it's important, and this goes for all countries, it's important to ensure that we are familiar. And I mentioned before the importance of being in touch with the permanent mission. So understanding from the permanent mission side, what are things of which we need to be careful with. And that would have been explained to us when we met with our permanent mission, how it is that we coin certain things, the use of terms to ensure that we are not conflicting with respect to how it is that our country in terms of capital is being represented in other areas of the UN. So striving for consistency is one of the important things of which our permanent mission has indicated to us. Additionally, we look at the side events. So what is the listing of side events that are scheduled for the session? Based on the side events that are scheduled, based on our level of participation, because we then have members of the delegation that are involved in various working groups, tasks, teams, etc. And so with that, what is their interest based on level of participation in these various bodies, but also given our level of participation at the regional level and the global level, what are the agenda items of which we definitely need to provide interventions for, but also the side events that we may need to participate in while physically there in New York. For some side events are offered given a hybrid approach in terms of modality. Others are totally face-to-face while they're in New York. So after getting official approval in terms of traveling, in terms of official approval of the delegation, we then go through the process of finalizing plans. And then with respect to journeying to New York, visiting the past office of which Ceci would have mentioned in terms of getting—
Simone, your 5 minutes are up.
And with that, going through the process also of meeting with our permanent representative, also going to the UN headquarters now, attending the side events and the meetings, delivering our interventions, and with that, being able to provide the required representation. So given our focus as a delegation, so we usually, based on our level of involvement, craft interventions in relation to the regional committees, because we sit as Caribbean Vocal for the Board of Directors. So we usually assist with the crafting of regional interventions for the Board of Directors, also for the UN-GGIM in terms of interventions that speak to that particular agenda item, also for the subcommittee on geodesy, also for the working group on geospatial information for disaster risk management, of which Jamaica co-chairs with China as interim co-chair. So the ODPM sits as the Jamaica representation there for co-chair. Also, we serve within the working group on policy and legal framework for geospatial information management, and also representation in the UN group of experts on geographical names. And so that's our guy. Okay, so at this point, I invite Paul to now share with us what is the procedures that the United States of America goes through in terms of their level of representation, with preparation and then representation in the UN-GGIM sessions, which is also significantly influenced by their level of involvement in the various bodies of the UN-GGIM. So over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. And just to let Cecile know, I think when in preparations, it was suggested we stay around 7 to 8 minutes in our presentation. So I'm right around there, Cecile. So I'll do my best to finish sooner. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Hopefully we won't have the same issues we had in preparation. Please let me know if you can see my presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. First of all, it's an honor to be part of this preparatory webinar, and I appreciate the opportunity to share the United States preparations for the annual session of the Committee of Experts. And hopefully you'll find our approach and some of the things that I share useful, and also supplement what's already been shared. The one thing that I was remiss in was sort of addressing the focal point. You might wonder why the U.S. Census Bureau, the United States Census Bureau, is talking about UN-GGIM. We have been the focal point for the United States since UN-GGIM's inception for all 14 previous sessions. We maintain the national, administrative, and statistical boundaries for the United States, and we're also the national leaders in the integration of statistical and geospatial information. So as such, generally the chief of the Geography Division at the United States Census Bureau takes the focal lead on U.S. representation at UN-GGIM, and then we engage many, many other agencies and private sector in the U.S. delegation, which I will share. Just let me see if I can get. Okay, wonderful. So the United States delegation to UN-GGIM is composed, as I mentioned, of representatives from numerous federal agencies as well as the private sector. While not all members travel to New York for the meetings, many actively support the delegation's efforts throughout the year and by contributing to the preparation process. And this also includes advising the head of the U.S. delegation, the U.S. Department of State, and the U.S. mission to the United Nations. Our delegation meets monthly to coordinate all of the work of UN-GGIM, to share progress updates, and to identify any new opportunities or concerns. And we ensure we are well prepared, not only for the formal proceedings of UN-GGIM in New York in August, but all other UN-GGIM meetings and sessions throughout the year. We begin our formal preparations each year in May. And yes, this is an early start, but this early start is critical for us, given the number of steps and reviews involved in preparations and developing the U.S. positions and interventions. Our May meeting kicks off with a review of the upcoming session agenda items, which have been shared, followed by discussions on intervention development, delegation attendance, and our side event coverage. We start, as I mentioned, by, again, reviewing the agenda topics for the upcoming session. We examine who covered each agenda item the previous year, and then we assign or reassign one or more members of the delegation to review the current year's reports and any supporting documents. And these individuals are typically subject matter experts already supporting that area of UN-GGIM's work. Their responsibilities include analyzing the report content, identifying any key issues or concerns, or supporting positions needed. Also reviewing, as Cecile has mentioned, the points for discussion section at the end of each report. And then we determine whether an intervention is needed based on alignment with our U.S. Policy, interests, and priorities. We only craft interventions when we have a specific point to make, whether it's to support or oppose an action, express concern, or encourage action from the UN-GGIM community. We do try to avoid general praise unless it adds value, as we aim to use our limited speaking time purposefully, because we do only have a limited amount of time for each intervention we submit. Once the need for an intervention is identified, the designated reviewer or reviewers will convene relevant subject matter experts to discuss the topic, and together they're going to draft an intervention. And typically that intervention is kept to 3 to 4 concise key points. The draft is then submitted to the head of the delegation for review and feedback. And then once the head of delegation approves the intervention, it is then sent to the U.S. Department of State for further review and clearance. And the Department of State, along with the White House, will review the language to ensure it's consistent with the U.S. policy and administration priorities. And, as mentioned, this is a multi-step review process, and that's why we do begin so early in the year. It's also important to note that the head of our delegation, along with a small core group, including myself, will review all of the agenda item reports and supporting documents. And this is important for us to be able to respond flexibly, whether to modify an existing intervention or draft a new one during the formal proceedings themselves. I thought you might like this. This is actually just from our whiteboard 2 days ago. We keep a whiteboard just to kind of monitor our progress through each phase of preparations. This happens to show where we were with the interventions and review of the reports and what we were going to intervene on and what we weren't. And this has since been erased, and we're now on to our next phase. But I just thought I'd show sort of the details, that level that we go to monitor and track our progress. As I mentioned, the U.S. delegation is large and it's multidisciplinary with experts representing the wide range of work covered in UN-GGIM. However, as I did mention, not all members attend the annual session in New York because we're based primarily on the East Coast, especially in and around Washington, D.C. Our in-person delegation tends to be larger than most, given our proximity to New York City. I guess we call that the home field advantage, right? Our attendance process involves identifying the experts that are going to represent specific agenda topics, side events, forums, or working group meetings that are going to be held, requiring each delegate to submit a justification for their attendance, explaining how their participation supports the U.S. interests. Then we have to submit a memorandum with the names of the delegates and their justifications to the Department of State for their review and potential revision. And then once they're done, it's forwarded to the White House for their final approval. And just as a note, as of today, we are still waiting for our final approval of our delegation for the 15th session. And this is another reason why it's such a lengthy process that we really have to begin our preparations early. In addition to the plenary sessions, as Simone has mentioned, we also review the full UN-GGIM calendar of side events and forums, and we aim to ensure as best we can U.S. representation across many of the relevant events as possible. And this is critical, and I think as Michelle mentioned, for instance, last year, we were unable to attend that side event on climate and sustainable development. And as a result, we had to develop a last-minute intervention because we hadn't planned to intervene on that topic. And it was quite a complex topic. And had we not been as well prepared, it would have really put pressure on us during our involvement already ongoing in those formal proceedings and in that formal session. So having adequate coverage enables us to contribute more meaningfully and respond to emerging issues quickly. Just quickly, during the UN-GGIM session in New York, we always have a dedicated WhatsApp group to ensure that we have real-time communication with all of the delegates in case something comes up or we need to react to something. After the session, we compile a trip report that summarizes all of the key outcomes and activities, which is then shared with the entire delegation, agency heads, and the Department of State. We then prepare a cable notice briefing for the State Department, the White House, and the U.S. mission to the UN. And then finally, at our subsequent monthly meetings, we kind of hold a debrief, try to capture lessons learned, and then incorporate those into the next year's planning. This process is lengthy and it's complex, but it does ensure that we as a delegation are well coordinated, we're able to be responsive, and that we do align with our national interests and priorities. I hope this overview has been helpful and insightful in how we manage our preparation and participation in the UN-GGIM process. And hopefully you find some of this helpful in your preparations. And that's all I have. So thank you very much. Hopefully I was a little less than 7 minutes there, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much for carrying us through the procedures, the journey of the United States as you prepare for your representation this year, the 15th session. So we're hoping that based on the sharing that would have been done by Marcathion, my sharing, also that of Paul's sharing, and you would hear the consistency with respect to our approaches. So there's similarity in terms of approach. There's a lot of collaboration that happens. In particular, for Jamaica and the United States, given the various government entities that are involved, that we get involved in the process, you would hear the alignment in terms of the procedures that CC would have shared. You would have heard reference with respect to checking off the agenda, looking at agenda items, identifying what is important given national importance, also looking at the listing of side events, identifying which areas to support given interest and also level of importance given our national priorities. So all that being very important, okay? So thank you for that, Paul. Thank you for that, Marcathion. So as we continue, it is now important for us to go through the journey of understanding what those, and also what it is that each of those reports are sharing with us. So for each of the reports, and Ceci would have mentioned that, for each report, there is an area at the end of each report that speaks to points for discussion. So the points for discussion is what should guide us as member states with respect to what are the areas of which each of those working groups or task teams, etc., what it is based on the reports that they have prepared for the intersessional period presented at the 15th session, what are the main areas of which they want us to focus on. So is it a case whereby there are particular background documents of which they have submitted for us to review and provide feedback? Is it a case whereby they want our support with respect to their work plan that they have presented? Are there particular major action items or plans for the future of which they have, of which they would want our support with respect to those particular items? Are there particular things in terms of decisions that they would want our support with respect to coming to some level of conclusion where particular matters are concerned? So Cecile is going to guide us through the agenda items as listed for the 15th session and what are those points for discussion and how it is that we can go through the process of preparing and delivering our statements or our country level interventions for those agenda items. Over to you, Cecile. So seeing your side, Cecile, but not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Wonderful, hearing you now.
How much time we have left for this webinar?
So we have 18 minutes remaining.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go very fast. Okay. I'd said this before, more or less. An important thing to note when you're making your interventions is that the whole matter of interpretation. So because we are native English speakers, we generally speak very fast. So for interpretation purposes, we ask that you go at a moderate pace so the interpreters can do a good job. Usually we also ask for those sometimes member states who prepare statements in advance. The Secretariat encourages you to submit your statements, and these statements are submitted through another portal that goes to the interpreters, and so it helps the interpreters to be able to do a good job when they interpret. All right. And Simone said some of these things before about being short and concise with your interventions. I think Paul mentioned it. It's very important. Some delegations have a way of saying lots of applause and thanks, which is sometimes not very necessary. And you need to get straight to the point, speak to the chair, come prepared. All of this has been said already. And I won't go through this slide, but it's just about how do you make a good statement, having a hook, a point, and a call to action, right? When you're making a general statement.
Quick question, Cecile. Could you go back to the previous slide, please?
Okay.
That point that you have about the chair may call a speaker to order. In what cases does that happen?
All right, suppose you're speaking too long, or you say something that is not nice about a member state, or you may be feisty or rude, or you may make a political point. The chair can call it to order to say, no, we cannot allow this kind of behavior, or this is not allowed, this is not in line with the procedures and principles of the Committee of Experts. So that's the power of the chair. I've seen it happen, not in GGIM. Usually when the GGIM chair just says, oh, please reduce your time and be short and quick, that kind of thing. They're usually very nice in GGIM meetings. Okay. All right. Procedures for intervention, there you say, apply the KISS principle, keep it short and simple. Usually say, Mr. Madam Chair, when you're addressing the speaker. So on and so forth, distinguished experts, so on and so forth. I would like to speak on this. This slide just talks about, speaking skills that you can have, use humor, don't be afraid to read from the page. One of the things you should note that they use audio visuals very little. It's more about speaking and talking and using your voice. Lots of us shy away from public speaking, but it's something that we have to get used to. And these are just sample things. You'll get the slides and you can look at past videos, and you will, it's easy for you to learn how people make interventions. Over the years, I've seen where the level and quality of interventions have improved over time, particularly for delegations who have been constantly participating. Of course, some people are very flowery still and with long interventions and not to the point. But you cannot emphasize it enough that you can seek the support of your mission. They know how to do it and they do it very well. I'll skip this too. It's just additional information. Here before we had spoken about what is a decision and a resolution. The Committee of Experts has not made many resolutions. In its entire history, it has made about 5 or 6 resolutions on very pointed, principled points that they wish to seek from. When I say a resolution is, well, a decision is taken or a resolution. A resolution is written in a special format, right? It's usually prepared by member states, submitted to the committee. The committee approves it at the meeting, and then it is further submitted for approval by its parent body, which is ECLAC. And then it becomes a resolution. Lots of people don't know that if you want to get a resolution to the highest body, it needs to go from ECLAC to the General Assembly, right? And we have only had 2 such resolutions in UN-GGIM. I think the geodetic one and the one on the working group on disasters framework, and has gone to the General Assembly. But this kind of intervention in terms of creating resolutions, causes causes quite a bit of challenge in terms of interventions from member states because it has to be supported. I apologize for that break in transmission. Okay, so we won't go into what's the differences between a resolution and a decision because we don't have time for it. Suffice it to say that information is provided and you can look at it. A resolution has a special format, special language, and it's an art form that you learn to do after a couple of years, times, whatever. In terms of negotiations, this is something that I know that many persons are not au fait with, and this is again where your mission representatives will help you. Oftentimes, you will note that the Europeans are very good at it because they work together to make it happen. And this is something that I implore the Caribbean to start to rally around in terms of coming together and maybe a month or two before the session starts and come to Caribbean positions in terms of certain things that you would like to have happen at the committee level in New York, and you negotiate among yourselves what you need to do. And you decide, and the negotiations though will move outside of the Caribbean, might be regionally and globally. And how do you interface with the other blocks for them to join on board with you to make your point and to create your decision? Do you want a new agenda item to be added? Do you want a specific work item that pertains to maybe sargassum that should be relevant to the Caribbean? And one of the points that I've always thought that enough emphasis is not done is that UN-GGIM Americas is the conduit, right, for regional decisions up to New York. And I don't believe that the decisions coming out of the regional meetings are being conveyed sufficiently to the global meetings. And these are some of the things that you need to look at and address as a region and as Caribbean member states, to have your points being raised and your interests being addressed. Okay. I'm repeating slides. This.
I have a question, Cecile.
Go
Can
ahead.
you go back to the previous slide, please? You have a point there about remaining calm when angry attacks occur. Can you speak more to that?
Okay, can be very difficult, but this is part of diplomacy and being able to respond under attack. And sometimes pointed statements are made, or statements are made that your delegation you may not be in agreement with, and you need to be able to navigate the waters and to respond accordingly. If you follow the rules of procedure, if somebody make a statement, you have the right to respond, and you may press your button and formulate your response and respond accordingly and nicely. But as I say, within the GGIM arena, very little of this happens. Have I answered your question? Okay, I've not heard from Simone. I hope I've answered her question. All right. In terms of the report, it's the most important document coming out of the session is the final report, right? And oftentimes at the Friday at the end of the meeting, when the decisions are being made, many people are leaving, they have a flight to catch. And let me tell you, don't book your flights to leave at midday or 3 o'clock. You need to pay attention when the agenda items are being gavelled. Usually they try to prepare the decisions, right? Remember, at the end of each agenda item, there's a summary, and the summaries are compiled. and are prepared in what we call the L document. And the documents hopefully will be circulated by email the Thursday night into Friday morning, and usually they are printed and circulated, right? The Secretariat has an onus to make these documents available to the committee in order for them to review them and to provide comments on them. This is a very important Agenda 20 when the reports are being reviewed. The decisions are being reviewed, pardon me, is very important. You pay keen attention to the language and the content to ensure that it is in alignment with the discussions that happens on the floor. Equally important is the provisional agenda for the coming year. That document can also be amended during, just don't allow it to be knocked off. Look at what is included. Is it satisfactory? Because oftentimes we don't pay attention to the documents. So it is one, the procedural part of the report, the decision part of the report, and the agenda for the following year. Very important on the last day of the session, that the last meeting, that you pay attention to what is included and make your intervention, if needed, to support your country's position. I cannot emphasize it enough. All right.
Cecile,
yes,
could
yes,
I just interject there? Sorry to interrupt you, but
yes, no, please go ahead.
I just wanted to emphasize how important that statement you made about being present to listen to the review of decisions made, because oftentimes there's debate about the language, and edits are provided by member states, but sometimes not everything is captured. And so if you've made an important intervention on behalf of your member state that isn't captured, that's an opportunity for you to then reiterate your position and to have it captured. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of everybody being present to review during those closing meetings of the session. So sorry, I just wanted to just reiterate how important that is. Thank you.
I support your intervention, Paul. It's very important, and we cannot have it being said enough. I've seen many things go through which ought not to have gone through because member states have not been paying attention, are not keen on what is being said and what is being gaveled. All right. So this is a reiteration of what I just said before, but you have it there. I would like to draw your attention to what we have in terms of the library is usually participating in this session. A lot of persons don't know, as a delegate, you can access the UN library. They have lots of resources online and also available. And look at them, click on them, and learn a little bit more about what happens within the UN. Tons of information to support you in terms of your preparation, but also your work that you do internally. In terms of takeaway, I have put up a few points here before I go on to my next slide. I have an hour presentation. Prepare. We cannot emphasize it more. I think all our speakers have said that. The Secretariat is at your service. We're here to support you and to work for you. All right, collaborate, cooperate, contribute, important. And of course, you heard from Michelle, and I've captured her quote. You are not seen if you are not heard. Very important. All right, thank you. But I'm going to move over to another presentation that Simone alluded to.
Well, Cecile is doing that. Colleagues, it is now 3 minutes to the hour. We're scheduled to end in 3 minutes. Going to crave your indulgence, please, to facilitate an additional 10 minutes, 15 the most, as we wind up this webinar. If you are able to stay with us, we would welcome you staying with us as we conclude, because we still have a few important matters to discuss and to share with you before we conclude. Back over to you, Cecile.
Okay, are you seeing my thing? No?
No, not seeing your screen, is it?
Uh-oh. Escape, share, that, share. Seen it now?
Yes, it's up. Just need to go in presentation mode. Thank you.
Okay. This slide has to do with the documentations and the reports, right? What we try to do here is to give you support in terms of helping you along. Regrettably, I don't have statistics for last year, but this is statistics for 2023, where you saw that the agenda items that got the most interventions were the UN-GGIM, the Future Geospatial Ecosystem Geodetic Reference Frame, Enhancing Geospatial Global Geospatial Information Management Arrangements. And you'll see the stats, right? All right. In terms of the number of interventions in that year for country, Saudi Arabia was the highest. The top 10 were these countries. And you'll recognize that most of them are developed countries. Well, Tonga, 12. Indonesia, 12. Mexico, 12. Sweden, the USA intervened 9 times, right? 47 countries in total made interventions. In that year, Barbados made 3, Guyana 1, and Jamaica made 6. All right. This is the overview now on the reports. We thought that it would be good to provide you with an overview. You'll recognize that the symbol number does not matches up with the agenda item. This is something, because some people think there's a clear reference, but it is not. Agenda item is different from the symbol number. Symbol number is a sequential number that Vilma assigns per document title, right? And you'll recognize that there are no documents for the program management report because generally Stefan just reads something that he writes. The provisional agenda and the dates will be submitted in a separate symbol number that I don't have right here now, but these symbols will be assigned later on. All right, because the agenda and will be circulated sometime during the meeting, might be on Thursday or so on, and posted to the website and the report. So these 2 documents you need to look at when they are posted. The report will come in 2 sections or 3 sections, the procedural part, and then the decisions. You may get a set of decisions Thursday night, Friday morning, and then the matters that are dealt with on Friday, you might get those decisions in the afternoon of Friday. All right, so that's the documentation. And then I need to share with you a sheet that I've been preparing. Are you still seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Seeing a Microsoft Word document.
Yes, it's a Microsoft Word document. I hope you can see it clearly. And what it is, I try to do.
Zoom in a bit more, please, Cecile.
Lord, you can't see it? See it now?
Thank you. Wonderful.
Okay. All right. What I tried to do was to list all the reports, the technical reports. In the first column, try to provide a little summary of what is included in the report, the points for discussion. And in this section now, the member states can decide what they're going to do. Are they going to address enhancing global geospatial information management arrangement? It is down in the organization of work as an item for discussion and decision. In the report, it talks about what it has done, what the Secretariat has done in terms of coordinate, and the Bureau. So the Secretariat and the Bureau wrote this report. Coordination of activities with the subsidiaries in the 3 centers, that is 3 centers. The establishment of the Secretariat, which is the recruitment of that 7 new staff members. It looks at the Bureau meetings that were held, the GGIM strategic framework that you had quite a bit of consultations ongoing. It speaks about the staging of the Third World Forum in Congress in 2026 in Saudi Arabia, and the proposal to establish an international day. And of course, it is supported by a background document. So will, say, St. Lucia intervene? Well, maybe it may want to talk about this proposal to establish World Geospatial Day. And in your intervention, you may say, why do we need to have a World Geospatial Day when ESRI already supports a GIS Day globally? Do we need to have another day? What are the requirements to support another Geospatial Day? Do the UN, who will support it? It needs resources. What is going to be done? I don't know. I've not read the proposals as yet, the background document. So these are the kind of things, as Paul alluded to, that you will need to do as a member state representative if you believe that these issues are important to your country and you need to intervene. So what I try to do in this is to summarize it, that it reduces the amount of reading that you may need to do. So you may look at this table and you say, well, the regional committees, I think this agenda item was just for information and discussion. No decision is to be made. And one of the points for discussion could be, why is this report not for decision, right? And but this is me speaking to you as Cecile and not as a member of the Secretariat. All right, so I'm being bad. So this is the objective. So in the regional report, it had quite a bit of information. It's a huge report. And I think one of the most important points for discussion in this report had to do about taking note of the proposed dates of the upcoming plenary meetings of the 5 regional committees. Apart from that, it has not really asked much of the committee. It says provide guidance to encourage regional committees to further strengthen their interregional and bilateral collaboration. All of these things are already happening, right? So for me, has the committee, the regional committees really, what are they really asking the committee of experts? But this is not a question for you really, but yeah, the points for discussion could be a bit stronger. All right. I also looked at the future geospatial information ecosystems, and that report talks about the webinars they had. They have created a background paper, and they talk about next steps in terms of foresight, looking and engagement and alignment with broader digital agenda and collaboration. And of course, the points for discussion are also there. Express its views on the global geospatial community, prepare and adapt rapidly changing environment, the position paper that they have presented, and the next steps to be considered in continuing the journey, and the views to continue proposed activities, right? And the next steps. So is it a paper that you would wish to make an intervention on? What will you intervene on? Is there something that you need to contribute? So this is just a matrix to support you. This is not what about the IGIF and what the IGIF is asking you. So if you wish, please indicate if you would like to have this matrix, and we will share it with you, and you can use it to support your preparation. And
a question or comment?
Yes, go ahead, Valerie.
So just in terms of, I find that the matrix you're prepared, Cecile, will be a very useful tool, especially for persons who are getting started at this late stage. What it does, it allows you to at least have a great overview, and then you can dive into the specific documents that you think are very representative or will impact your country. my addition, so I would encourage persons to really get that matrix. So Cecile, please send it. I need a copy of it, certainly. I also want to say that I think this is a safe space. We have friends of the Caribbean and Caribbean here present in the meeting. The reality is that as a region, we have to look at the things that are really impacting us. And I know that we will have an opportunity before the meeting starts to look at those. But I would want us to try to make sure that we pick out some points. For example, I didn't see the one about what Cecile said about a World Geospatial Day. Are we just making up stuff as we go along? If the private sector, and this is me wearing my private sector hat, already has something that is recognized globally, why not endorse that, adopt it, or something? Does it mean as much to the Caribbean, especially a place like Jamaica, where we have been celebrating for 23 years? Do we want to disrupt that kind of a flow? And for the rest of the Caribbean who has adopted, is this something that we would really want to take on? And maybe that's something that we can have a regional position on. So just want to put some of those things out there.
Yeah, so that is why the matrix is important, because it gives you things that maybe you would not have readily picked up. So thanks for making that point, Valerie. But I still have work to do because I've not filled out all the columns as yet, because it's quite a bit of course, reading of reports, particularly that I have not written any of them. So I will do this as fast as I can, hopefully finish today. And please, if you need it, let us know, because you will not get it unless you ask for it. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening to me. I hand over back to Simone. I hope you found this webinar useful. It was intended to support the Caribbean, to seek greater participation, to make your voices be heard. And I end here. Thank you. I see Paul has his hand up. You have a question, Paul, for me?
Just more of a statement. Sorry, I moved you to the big screen so I could see your matrix. Just with regards to the development of interventions and going through that exercise that you've just displayed for us, there's always a challenge depending on the requirements of each member state with what is the process for developing an intervention and who has to review it and finalize it. Because, for example, the position paper on the future geospatial ecosystem and those supporting documents were not available at the time we reviewed the report. So we had to make a decision without seeing all of the supporting documents. And I think that's always a challenge for each member state. And I just wanted to mention that no matter, in spite of the Secretariat's best efforts, not all of the reports and the supporting documents get posted in a timely manner to enable member states to develop their interventions and to have a really good feel. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to wait a very long time to go through the exercise that you're doing and get a full picture of each addenda topic and what's being asked, then that's fantastic. But sometimes, like you say, in the United States, for example, sometimes we just have to make a decision based on what is available, and then what we need to do, and this is why we do it. We'll eventually get to reading all of those supporting documents, and then that may result in us revising our original developed intervention, or if then further conversation happens on the floor or during side events or during a forum, that may then result in us modifying as well, which is the case last year. So, I think the developing and being prepared is wonderful, but we also sometimes have to be flexible in being able to adapt what we have already developed based on new information becoming available. So I just wanted to mention that, and I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Paul. That was a very, very important point. And to feed on that, to continue based on what you just shared, Paul, there are times when interventions are prepared beforehand, and then while on ground there at the UN headquarters, things happen while going through the sessions. So based on things that happen on the floor, given interventions from other member states, given changes after the national interventions are prepared. Sometimes there is that need with respect to tweaking, amending accordingly to fit what is the actual reality while on ground at the UN. All right.
Can I make a point? Can I make a point to support that? And that is why the right person at the highest level needs to be at the meeting. Caribbean member states have a way of sending a deputy somebody to the meeting. That is why when McCarthy spoke, he said his permanent secretary participates in the meeting, and that person has the authority to make a decision. Oftentimes, because the authority to make a decision is not present in the room, it is very difficult to be agile on the fly and make the changes. Some countries, although their head of agency may be on the floor, they are unwilling to make changes to their intervention given their procedures in capital that they have, and they have no flexibility in making changes. But when you have the authority in capital as the focal point to make geospatial decisions, it becomes very easy to be flexible on the floor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that.
That is why I allude to, you have the ability to not have the agenda item closed. It can remain open to allow you to seek consultation with capital should you need to do so. But of course, you know, the chair can override you, but then you can stand your ground to say, no, we need to seek whatever. All right. So point to note. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Cecile. On that note, at this point, do we have any questions? Are there any questions that you have at this point? Could we get an indication as to how many persons present within the webinar who have intent to be present at the 15th session? We know that you may still be going through your procedures in terms of getting approval, but an indication of how many are intending or hoping to be present. Could we get a show of hands? A raised hand if it's your intent to be present. Intent to be present, raise of hand, raise of hand, raise of hand, raise of hand. Okay, wonderful. Excellent, wonderful. With that, are you feeling, if you were feeling uncertain or overwhelmed before about being present this year, if it's your first time, if it's your second time, are you feeling more comfortable? Are you feeling more confident given all the information that would have been shared, given the discussions we've been having? Is that the case? Are you feeling more comfortable? If you're feeling more comfortable, could we get a show of hand? Raise hand if you're feeling more comfortable based on all that has been shared with you. Are you feeling more comfortable? More comfortable? More comfortable? Clearer? Wonderful. With that also, are there any concerns that you have? Given all that has been shared, do you still have any concerns that we have not addressed that we may need to address before we close? Any concerns? Any concerns? I am checking through the chat. So I note that persons have been posting in the chat with respect to, yes, they would like the matrix that Cecilia is assiduously working on to be shared with them. Please do continue to post in the chat. Please share your email addresses in the chat if you would like the matrix to be shared with you. All right, please continue to so do. Is there anything else that we can do as a Caribbean Geospatial Development Initiative Steering Committee to assist you along the journey of your preparations? If there's anything else, you may open mic and speak, or you may post in the chat if there's anything else. All right, have you benefited from the webinar? Is there anyone present who has not benefited from the webinar? Can we show a show of hands if you have benefited from being here? If you've learned anything new, please do give a show of hand. Yes, learned anything new? Yes, you have benefited. Yes, this webinar has been of significance and importance given your attendance. Wonderful. We're happy to hear that. With that, as we conclude, just a few things. we would have shared a breakdown of the side events. So this webinar, which leads us in terms of preparations, in addition to side events that are happening, of which we would really like and of which the Caribbean's presence will be definitely needed for the 15th session. So Sophia would have spoken to the America side event. It's happening on Monday, August the 4th at 10 to 11:15 a.m. in conference room A. Or CARIGEO side event happens the following day in the morning at the Chile Permanent Mission, and the address is there in the table. So please do come and support and learn and be willing to share based on what our discussions will be. Also, we plan to have a line of all the Caribbean member states representatives that will be journeying to New York. So we plan to have a line by that evening of Tuesday the 5th. In addition, there is a dinner reception celebrating the launch of the Geospatial World Forum for 2026, and that's happening Thursday evening, the 7th in the evening, and it's happening at that restaurant there. That's indicated it's organized by Geospatial World. Also, the official meetings of the 15th session will be held from the Wednesday, August the 6th, to the Friday, which is August the 8th, and they vary in terms of time, 10:30 on the Wednesday and 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. each day. And Ceci would have gone through the whole registration process. Additionally, so Sophia would have mentioned it, Ceci would have also mentioned it, the 12th session of UN-GGIM Americas, the official meetings come up November 5th to the 7th, and before that, the 2 previous days, the 3rd and the 4th, are side event days all day, and then there are side events that are going to be happening interspersed throughout the 5th to the 7th. So we look forward to Caribbean member states being able to show up in terms of attendance at those meetings, since this is the session for member states within North America, Latin America, South America, and the Caribbean region. And it will be happening at the UN-ECLAC headquarters in Santiago, Chile. So as we close out this webinar, we are very thankful for your participation as we looked at how it is that we prepare for and we show up in terms of preparations for the upcoming 15th session, and also what would have gone through in terms of preparations for the 15th session, very applicable with respect to preparations for the 12th America session in November. So we look forward to seeing you there in New York in the next 2 weeks. And with that, we thank you for joining us. We will follow up in terms of sharing the presentations from today's webinar, and those who have posted in the chat in terms of your willingness or you wanting to receive the matrix of which the seal is preparing for us, that will be shared also with those who have indicated.
Simone, can you take a group picture, please?
Yes, that is a wonderful idea. On that note, could we invite everyone to please turn on your video? Please turn on your camera. Please turn on your camera so that we can take a few group photos.
I need to put on my smile.
Okay. Group photo. All right, please hold the smiles, hold the smiles, hold the smiles. Hold the smiles. Wonderful. And we go again. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. So,
there's I don't know if ECLAC has seen the message.
Was of benefit, and we will follow up with respect to disseminating the additional information in terms of the presentations afterwards.
Simone, Valerie was saying something.
The message
sorry,
that some persons did not have the ability to turn on their cameras.
Okay.
For the photo. So I don't know if they can give them that ability and you can redo that.
All right. Does everybody now have that ability to show camera?
I think ECLAC has to grant persons that ability.
No. All right. ECLAC team, could you assist us, please? So persons can turn on their mics.
Cameras.
Sorry, cameras. Sorry, not mics, cameras. Okay, can we try again, please? Those who are able to turn on your camera.
Going to happen if they're still in the attendee mode. They just need to elevate everybody into the panelists so that they can turn on the cameras.
Yes. Panel team, could you, everybody please, from attendees to panelists? Thank you.
Are the attendees disappearing?
No, they're coming into the panelists. They're taking them up. That's why.
Okay.
Hi, PS. Good to see you.
Any others with cameras? Oh, coming over. All right. Yeah, just hold for us, please, while we try to get everybody over so that we can take the photo.
You have to put on the smile again.
That's not
That's
holding.
the process,
holding.
right?
We're not seeing your face. Wonderful. We're seeing your face now. Wonderful. Still a few more as attendees and not panelists. Just waiting, please. Thank you.
Okay.
They're taking very long.
I think we just have to take it.
Yes, let's just take it. Smile, please. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the speakers, all the presenters. Thank you, Sepal, for technical support, and all the best. I'm looking forward to seeing those of us who will be able to journey to New York. All the best, everyone. Take care and bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.